this is, my time. This is it. So I rented out my house. I moved to Ames, Iowa. Iowa State had the best program, the most financial. I graduated 3 years. I graduated with no student debt, thanks to some very creative people. And so I studied there, and then but I was longing for the West. So I decided I would thought about what I wanted to do about that. So I decided to do my dissertation in the West, and I did it on the Navajo Nation. I studied the reintroduction of Navajo churro sheep and wool to Navajo lands, Navajo weavers, which is really interesting. But I also studied knitting. I was always interested in knitting. And I tried to start a Knitwits group in Iowa State, but they were so work driven. I mean, they were afraid it would look like they weren't working hard enough or something. It was just, nobody would do it. So, but I still kept knitting. And anytime I had to write a paper in history, I wrote it about knitting history. And interestingly, after I got my degree, everybody told me, don't study historical cultural. All the jobs are in design and merchandising. And I thought, there's no point. And of course, I thought, I'm going to get out and I'm going to write things and get paid. And that wasn't really going to happen. But just the perfect job opened up for me at Dominican. I think I walked across the stage, bent down, got my hood from Perry Luttrell, and I went home, and there was the announcement for this position, and it was just perfect for me. It was developing the liberal arts core for their apparel design and merchandising program, which was history of dress and culture. And then I negotiated textile science, which I really liked, and surface design of fabrics, so I could have a studio class. But then, before I left, I was teaching at Colorado State Fair for a year. And you invited me to your class you were teaching about the philosophy of knitting. Do you remember that? And I invited my friend Deb Robeson, who'd been an editor at Interweave, the editor of Spin-Up, and to come and just hear what I'd been doing, because I'd already done enough of this that I presented at the International Textile and Apparel Association meeting. I presented a scholarly paper on the history of knitting. I was very serious about this. And so Deb was there. And shortly after that, so I came and presented to your students. Shortly after that, Voyager Press called Deb and said, so we're looking for somebody to write a book on the history of knitting. Are you interested? And Deb said she really wasn't, but she knew somebody who would be. So once again, it just dropped into my hand. So I look like I'm being innovative, but really, I'm just there with my hands outstretched saying, okay, I'm ready. Yeah. So I signed the contract to write that book, which took me 2 years, the same month that I signed the contract to go and teach at Dominican, full-time, 3-3 schedule, 3 classes each semester. And I hope to never work that hard again in my life. That was really rough. And I moved and I sold my house. So that was rough. But it was really, really hard. But again, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but Facebook and MySpace were duking it out for which was going to be the students' favorite social media program. I was like, what was that, 18 years ago, something like that? Just the level of transformation in technology in that time, the 10 years I was there, was just amazing. The university was generous with travel funds, and so I started traveling every chance I got. And so I stayed there for 10 years, but I was always planning to move out here in the summer. I would come out to Seattle where my son had settled, and I would stay somewhere around here, and then I would go to the Seattle Central Library and write, the Scanduzzi Writer's Room up on the 9th floor of the Seattle Library. And I wrote articles, so that's how I got a lot of articles written. That was what I focused on. And then because the university paid so well for travel, boy, I presented every chance I got, which was wonderful. Costume Society, Textile Society, International Textile Apparel Association, Communal Studies. I was interested in that. And that was wonderful because, again, I was meeting people and people are still friends. And many of them, we became collaborators as we talked. That's also how I got quite a few of them. And then when the book was published, then I was invited to give a lot of talks, so I had to learn how to do that. And that was good. So then once I could leave, once I was in a financial position to retire, I moved out here to Pacific Northwest during a couple of years, just being retired, volunteering, the different things, and then really missed the writing. And I've gone back to writing quite often for what is now Long Thread Media, Linda Ligon and other editors for some of the magazines. And I'm still a contributing editor to Piecework, write for them quite a bit, the Needlework and History. But now I'm just so much, I don't know, I have so many resources now. I just learned so much in that graduate education. And then having to teach students, I had to develop a lot more knowledge. And now I know how to find information and how to write that. But during the pandemic, I just have to stop me at some point. But during the pandemic, I'm out here and things are really shut down from my volunteer positions and so on, and my social life. And I reconnected with a woman named Mary Swander. She's a distinguished professor from Iowa State University, now retired, and she had started a not-for-profit called Ag Arts, which is arts and agriculture. And just happened to connect with about a dozen other people online, and she was teaching a memoir writing course. And I thought, that sounds like a good thing to do when I'm at home. And it was just going to be a month, but everybody just loved it so much. Everybody knew Mary from somewhere. She had been my nonfiction writing professor and on my committee at Iowa State. And once again, I just came into my head, I wonder if Mary's teaching online. And there it was, memoir writing, which is what I wanted to do. I don't know. We all liked it so much that we just kept her going. We managed to keep her going for almost 3 years teaching us. And so I learned a lot more about writing. I really improved my writing skills. I learned more about storytelling, broke the bonds of academic writing. And because everything I wrote when we first started, she just said, no, too academic, get rid of that. Whole first paragraph, too academic, just throw that out. But then at first it was every week, then it was every month. And she set up workshops for us. And it really became a very important part of my life, learning to be a better writer, a more interesting writer, and a writer who could tell the stories that are in textiles and cloth and in clothing and their maker, telling those stories in a much more engaging way than I had before. And that's what I'm trying to do now. It is what I'm doing now, is going through just my own collection and finding pieces that suddenly I think, oh gosh, there's a story there. And then you just jump into the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole, and it's, oh, look at this. There's so much here, and history and all that.
Well, can you take us down one of those rabbit holes and give us a little teaser about some of the stories?
Sure. Let's see, what would be good? What do I have what I'm working on right now? Let me get it. It's awesome, colorful. I came across this. I'm going through all my knits, but this is woven. And it was woven I bought it at a estate sale in Colorado up in the canyon. And the label says made by Alice or Helen Dickerson of Buckhorn Canyon. And it was made using, I don't know, I used to be kind of a flea market junkie. I collected a lot of stuff. This is a little pin loom, a little weave it loom. And that's what this was made with. And so and I just today, I got the book that a journalist in Denver wrote. That's a biography of these two women who were legendary in Colorado, and writing it. So I'm just getting started on finding museums back there have photos, and it's just all right there for me. But I just sent this off to Linda Ligon and to the Piecework editor, Pat Olsky, and said, can you use this? Would you like this? And they're like, yes, yes, yes. We'd like that. So that's one of them. And let me see if I can find my tiny mittens here. That's the other one I'm working on. It is right here. So another thing I've found, I'm doing my knitting collection first because my intention is to donate that to the Habanero Museum at Colorado State University, which I'm really impressed. So I came across these little tiny mittens in my collection. The first two, a lot of the writing that I do is about travel. It's about where I found things, where I traveled all the way from Zambia to Peru to Amana, Iowa, to just offbeat places. This was in Riga, Latvia, and I found these little things. See how tiny they are? These are hand netted.